Well, it's interesting because technology will push on the way it will, irregardless of, any kind of sentiment for previous time or anything like that. And I think it's interesting to look to history for parallels because you see when you study history, this is nothing new. I mean, what's new is the technology, but the fact that politics changes over time with technology is nothing new. I mean, probably the most famous or, recent kind of well-known change in politics due to technology is television, radio and television. And, both changed politics dramatically. And President Roosevelt, one of the things people remember him by were the fireside chats. And the same thing with, President Kennedy with the, Kennedy-Nixon debates and just, how that whole era was so profoundly affected by technology. And so I think, it's a part of life, and it's something that I think any smart candidate would always be looking for the next big thing. And there were people that I talked to that kind of were involved in the 2008 campaign, and they were just saying how it was very clear that, President Obama, when he was running for president, the people that were working with him just had a command for technology that, his opponents just didn't have. And so, and I don't know all the details and everything like that, but it's something that if you're in politics, you have to accept. You have to accept that technology, for better or for worse, will have a major impact, and if you want to win, you have to be on top of that.
You're right, and I'm glad you pointed out that because the McCain campaign in 2008, they had a hard time catching up, with the technology because I think they was old-fashioned. They were depending on grassroots and telephone-a-thons or whatever you want to call. I mean, which are still good, handy, but technology has come a long ways, and they found it very hard to adapt to that. And you're right, because in 2012, technology is going to be just as big, with Skype.
Yeah, if not bigger.
Yeah, if not bigger, with Skype, Twitter, Facebook. And tell me, I would assume that you agree that technology is going to have a big role in the 2012 election.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think that, it's not even just a matter of how candidates run, but it's also how the media, how they pick up on these things too. So, pretty soon, I mean, everything now is all about instantaneous kind of communication and, poll numbers and everything like that. I mean, people are rating what they feel about the debates as the debates are going on. And it's really amazing to me. I don't know if you've ever kind of studied the history of journalism, and it's interesting to study amazing moments or tragic moments, say like the Kennedy assassination, and you see even then kind of how words spread. Back then they had, they obviously, they didn't have like internet or anything like that, but, they had wires, news wires and things like that. And now it's almost fascinating during, the whole Osama bin Laden killing, when you kind of look at the internet and how information was just trickling out very slowly, but as far as like the official word, but in terms of the unofficial channels, information was just coming, so fast. And before you knew it, the whole world knew that, Osama bin Laden had been captured. And so I think that, it's definitely something, it's a tricky thing that any politician has to deal with. And they also have to worry about leaks and things like that. And so I think that it's just something that if you're into politics, and if you're running for president in 2012, you have to have a command of, if you want a chance to win.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Osama bin Laden thing, because it was via Twitter that we find out that the president is going to make a major announcement at 10:30 p.m. And this is when technology can kind of one up politicians, because we found out about bin Laden's death and his capture before the president announced it to the nation. And it's just, and that to me was just mind-boggling, the power of technology. And in some ways or another, and we got about 40 seconds before we go to the break, technology is so powerful that instead of technology keeping up with the politicians have to keep up with technology.
Well, I don't know if you remember reading, but you know, when the helicopters took off, you know, when the raid went to go and take down, you know, Osama bin Laden, someone nearby who I forgot exactly what his capacity was, but he heard the helicopters and he tweeted about it. And of course, this is completely unofficial. This is just a, you know, private person just tweeting about it. At least, you know, in terms of, I mean, it wasn't like his Twitter was an official public account or anything that spoke for anybody except him. And, you know, I mean, things like that where it's really, it's uncontrollable.
Richard, we're about to go to a break. We're going to talk immigration, and we're also going to talk about terrorism when we return for the final 15. Stay tuned. Please don't take me.